Erling Haaland is set to sign a new contract with Manchester City. Those are the reports coming out of Spain, of all places. Can you believe it? The Spanish media doing a complete U-turn after Defensa Central reported the other day, 2 days ago, that he's going to join Real Madrid in 2025. AS was the other publication reporting the same thing, that headline-grabbing news that Haaland to Real Madrid in 2025. Well, Marca, another Spanish publication, have recently reported, as of today in fact, that he's set to sign a new contract with Manchester City, which I believe is much more believable considering Mbappe and Rodrigo and Vinicius Jr. and Endrick have all recently joined Real Madrid. Well, Endrick and Mbappe have at least recently joined and taken that number 9 role. There's absolutely no space for Erling Haaland, but there is a big, gaping Norwegian hole at Manchester City that very much welcomes the big Norwegian Erling Haaland. What a player. I mean, absolutely sensational. And what news this would be for Manchester City. The player that has currently scored more goals than the majority of the Premier League. More goals than Arsenal Football Club. He himself. More than the majority of the whole Premier League. In fact, only Liverpool and Chelsea have scored the same amount of goals as Erling Haaland currently in Premier League standings right now. That man has scored more goals than the majority of the Premier League football clubs have managed to score. This is the level of the standards that we're talking about at Manchester City. He's a phenom. The timing of the news isn't a surprise. The original news with him joining Real Madrid in 2025, it's the international week, slow news day, Real Madrid, let's try and stay relevant, Manchester City are doing well, how can we knock them down a peg or two? Let's talk about their best players joining Real Madrid. Yeah, very, very simple tactics from Real Madrid that have become incredibly transparent. And if I can spot it, majority of you can spot it as well. I'm pretty sure Manchester City are well aware of the old, dinosaur, archaic tactics that Real Madrid are trying to employ to try and sign players, or at least disgruntled players that are in rival clubs. And I'm talking about European rivalry, because that rivalry between Real Madrid and Manchester City on the European stage is growing and growing. But you can factor in the timing of situations from a Manchester City perspective, because I believe this is all surrounding the Erling Haaland contract, the Rodri contract. It all surrounds Pep Guardiola. If he signs a new contract, it's like that detective board when you see like a detective trying to work out what's going to go on, but it all comes back when you put a picture of a mugshot of someone's face on the wall, and they all have all these red strings peeling off, a new contract for that player, new contract for that player, new contract for that player. All the strings come back to one man, Pep Guardiola. No two ways about it. Without Pep Guardiola, these players don't sign new contracts. And I think we go into transfer markets now wondering, with the players at least, and the representatives of these players, with Erling Haaland having a very close relationship with Manchester City, and Rafael Pimenta as well as his new agent that works alongside Erling Haaland. The talks will be ongoing, but they will all surround, where's Pep going to be in a year's time? Where's he going to be in 2 years' time? Because I think if Pep signs a new contract that extends to 2 or 3 more years at Manchester City, that takes him beyond 10 years at Manchester City, and what an achievement that'll be. I think you'll hear Haaland's new contract follows in suit. Rodri, new contract, follows in suit. And I think a few other players will be linked with new contracts following on from a Pep Guardiola extension, which is yet to be announced, but the rumours are positive, at least, surrounding the Pep news. But I think the timing of it, I think City will be having this close, play in the holster, waiting to pull out the guns and fire them at our enemies, to let them know, because they're just waiting. They're waiting for Pep Guardiola to announce that he's off, because they know all too well. It helps them sleep at night, the 115 and the money thing. Remember all that? Remember how much money City spent, whereas now Chelsea is spending ridiculously more money than Manchester City. United have spent more money. Arsenal, 105 million on Declan Rice. Do you know what I mean? We've never spent that amount of money on any player. On any player. Do you know what I'm talking about? So all of these football clubs have now tried to follow the suit of Manchester City and thinking spending money gets you to the top. Well, they found out the hard way that it doesn't. Employing the best people for the best jobs, that's what gets you to the top. And Pep Guardiola's the best. They won't admit that. So now they have to sit there and wait for Pep to leave to give themselves a chance at winning proper silverware. Because until he leaves, it's ours. It's ours to win. It's ours to lose as well. But it's ours, ultimately. And that's what they have to accept. And City will know that all too well. The board, Ferran Soriano, Cheeky, they will all know that when Pep signs a new contract, they will time that announcement to hurt them the most, to hurt the enemies in the most. When they're down, we'll kick them harder. That's what we'll do. When they're suffering a little bit, we'll announce Pep's going to stay for 2 or 3 more years. And then a couple of months later, Haaland signing, Rodri signing, and that will break the mentality of our rivals. And we will time it. That's what it will be. It will be a calculated announcement. And I cannot wait for it. I hope it happens because the rumours are very, very positive. But this all follows from the nonsensical arguments that people have put out there, and the idea that it's all resurfaced old news, old statements being made by the likes of Rory Jennings. I mean, even Jeremy Carragher, when he said, what was he said? I think he may have joined the wrong club. I think he's actually joined the wrong club. He's not getting in behind. Is he actually at the wrong club? Jamie Carragher, the guy who's supposed to be highly reputable pundit for Sky Sports, has been slotted into the cabinet, the same cabinet of people that have said stupid things about Erling Haaland. Rory Jennings is in that cabinet, mate. Jamie Carragher's in there with him. How many more people need to get embarrassed by Erling Haaland and enter this cabinet of people that have said stupid things about Erling Haaland? There's a lot of idiots in there, and Jamie Carragher became one of them. It's pretty shameful. And I mean, I think Pep has just shown an ability to adapt. He showed it with Lewandowski at Bayern Munich. He doesn't fit the bill. And that came with news that Darren Bent on TalkSport suggesting that, actually, I think there's an element of truth to this, by the way, that Pep didn't initially want Erling Haaland. Now, that statement alone can be misconstrued a little bit to say Pep didn't want Haaland. No, I think Pep had to be approached first by Cheeky. Cheeky brought the idea of signing Erling Haaland to Pep Guardiola, but he had to do it knowing full well that Pep prefers a little bit more of a false nine situation, a David Villa, even a Sergio Aguero who had to adapt a little bit, a Lionel Messi playing in that role, a smaller, more agile centre forward that can drop deep. That's why he signed Gabriel Jesus, and these sort of players that can come and collect the ball, not an out-and-out old school number 9, but when you've got an Erling Haaland type of player, a phenom, an anomaly, a shooting star of a player that you will see once in a blue moon. And he's an absolute superstar, and Pep Guardiola welcomed that information from Cheeky. That to me shows a sign of real unity at the club, that Cheeky can bring a player to Pep Guardiola's attention and suggest this player, even though he doesn't fit your typical standard, your Johan Cruyff blueprint that has been followed by Pep Guardiola for years, he can adapt. And that shows the level of Pep Guardiola, the ability to adapt, to take what Johan Cruyff taught him and take it to another level, mould the team around a player like Erling Haaland. There is no way Erling Haaland would have been in the Johan Cruyff mould of striker that he wanted, nor Pep 10, 15 years ago. But look at him now. He showed glimpses with Lewandowski, getting crosses into the box to Lewandowski. His game didn't drop. If anything, it flourished under Pep Guardiola. Haaland, the same again. It's gone to another level. So this idea that Pep only can play with little players and tiki-taka players, it's been broken. It's been broken by Pep himself. He just smashes these accusations that certain players don't suit Pep Guardiola. Erling Haaland is the complete opposite of anything that's been a success story in the traditional sense of David Villa, Lionel Messi in Barcelona. Obviously, Lewandowski is the closest one, but Erling Haaland's just taken it out of this world. Astronomical numbers that he puts on the board. And a phenom of a player. Now, let's talk about terms. What could these possible terms be, with his agent being his father, of course, Alfie Inge Haaland, and Rafael Pimenta is the other agent that represents Erling Haaland. It could be the highest paid player at Manchester City with a reported £425,000 a week. Worth it, mate. Worth every penny, because, I mean, he's just a unique player. There's no one like him. So give him what he wants. The only question for me is there going to be a goal bonus in there? Because that could send us into bankruptcy. If you give him a 10%, every goal you score, you get a 10% on top of your wage or something like that. He'll kill us. You'll take us to the bank for $1 million a week with the amount of goals that this guy scores. So that's a concern. If there's any goal bonuses in there, not for the City fans, but for the Bank of Manchester City, which is pretty flush, I'd imagine. But still, keep the goal bonuses to a minimum because the guy's just an absolute robot that puts the ball in the back of the net on a weekly basis. So be careful with that one. The other term will, of course, be the release clause, which I think is understandable. You look at the history of Erling Haaland, he's had a release clause everywhere he's gone. The idea of maintaining choice being with Erling Haaland, and I think that will be continued into his next contract. Whether it's I think it will be a respectable release clause, and I think it'll probably be triggered at a certain stage. I imagine it will be 2-3 years into the new contract is when it can even be activated. And I think we'll be looking at 150 to 200 million euros for a release clause. Hopefully, if they get it down to 100, even then it's expensive, 100 million euros, and there's not many football clubs in the world that can trigger it. That then brings into question, will he want to leave? Because the idea is apparently that this release clause has to be affordable for Real Madrid. And then the question is, okay, when Real Madrid say, there's your money, and we can afford that release clause, what if Erling Haaland says no to Real Madrid? Because that doesn't suit the narrative that Real Madrid get any player in the world that they want. Because apparently they wanted Sergio Aguero. Barcelona wanted Sergio Aguero. David Silva. Yaya Toure. So many of our players were linked away from the club. But how many of these players that have been a huge success at Manchester City have left and gone to the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona and succeeded? Gundogan, and he came straight back. Do you know what I mean? So the idea that Manchester City is a stepping stone football club, you're so wrong if you believe that. We are the end goal now. We're alongside Real Madrid. I'm not putting us above Real Madrid. I'm well aware of where we are in the grand stature of football right now. Historically, we're miles off Real Madrid. But currently, we are going toe-to-toe with Real Madrid. Market value of the football club, we're worth more than Real Madrid right now. We generate more commercial revenue, believe it or not. And that's a key factor. Whether you want to believe it or not, don't believe it then. But the facts are right now, numbers saying otherwise, that Manchester City earn more than Real Madrid. And that's shown factually in numbers. And Erling Haaland, why would he want to leave this football club that is getting trebles? Two, effectively, because we got the Europa Super Cup, the UEFA Super Cup, the FIFA Club World Cup, and the Premier League last season. The year before that, the Premier League, the FA Cup, and the Champions League. 6 trophies in 2 years for Erling Haaland. Why would he want to leave? You know, he doesn't want to leave. This is why he's signing a new contract. And beyond that, we'll have to wait and see. But right now, the mould has been, speaking of mould was his first club. 2 years at Mould, then 2 years at RB Leipzig, then 2 and a little bit years at Borussia Dortmund. He's already broken that at Manchester City. Apparently that was meant to be the spell. It's 2 years here, 2 years there, 2 years there, and then he'll go and spend 8 years at Real Madrid. Well, he's already in year 3 at Manchester City, with reports suggesting that he's going to sign a new contract. So maybe it ain't that bad being at Manchester City.
It's his typical City now, holding up silver.